It's got to be the shoes, right? Or is it the track? Lots of wild times across the short distance track events at the current Olympics. Not so much in the middle distance though, there was a slower men's 10,000 metres. Today I'm going to explore whether it's the shoes, or the track, or shock horror, maybe it's even the athletes that are achieving these fantastic times. Welcome to the channel guys, Eddbud here. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications when we launch those new videos for you. And it really helps out too if you give this video a thumbs up like. Today a discussion piece where I'll be exploring whether it's the shoes, the track, or the athletes that are achieving some of these fantastic times that we've seen at the Olympics. The men's 400 metres hurdles winner, Karsten Warholm, he's been on the offensive lambasting some of those Nike athletes wearing the Air shoes. Where are we? Is it like 1980 or something? Not sure which ones he's referring to. You've got the Dragonfly spikes, there's the MAXFLY, and also the Victory, all of which meet the World Athletics standards. Warholm used some quite spicy language, conveying his views that he feels those athletes are running on air. Of course, this air technology has been around for ages. It's only recently where it seems to have crept into track spikes. His main issue seems to be with Nike placing things underneath the foot, aside obviously from the spikes themselves. And he goes on to imply that the Air Zoom units are trampolines. So we've kind of heard this argument before, haven't we? In fairness, it's starting to get a little bit tired, this whole argument. None of them give back more energy than you actually put into them. And it's the first time that we've seen this type of technology included within a track spike. We've yet to see any times that are really off the scale at the Olympics so far, aside from that 400 metres hurdles. Both the men's and women's race has seen some incredible times. It does appear as well as though a lot of runners are favouring the slightly simpler, I suppose, Dragonfly spike as opposed to the MAXFLY or the Victory. Just less tech involved in the Dragonfly, just some foam and some spikes, and that's just about it. I did see one chap has had to reinforce the very end of his Dragonfly spikes with some tape. Maybe I'll borrow a bit of gaffer tape off Dale Fender and stick some round. I think he's only got silver though, it might not look so good. Warholm went on to discuss his own shoe, which is in collaboration with Puma, and also a very famous automotive manufacturer. It's got a really thin carbon plate in it apparently, thinner than any that have come before it. Of course, other track spikes have used such technology in the past, so it's nothing new. Personally, I think this smacks a little bit of
their tech's bad, our tech's good.
And it feels odd to make such statements as well when you've won a race that's using a cutting-edge shoe as well. More interestingly though, aside from the shoes, the track itself seems to be causing quite a lot of discussion. Several athletes have referred to the track surface as being very soft, and it appears to have a great amount of give to it as well, perhaps more than before. Many of the athletes have stated they feel a lot more return from the track itself. Perhaps it's that little bit more forgiving. Sounds a bit like P-Back's foam, doesn't it? The designer of the track surface that's being used at the Tokyo Olympics has offered some more information up as to some of the advantages it might offer. The MONDO surface is extremely thin in comparison to past tracks. They reckon it's about 14mm in depth. That's not a lot. The track itself has got a lower layer, which is of a hexagonal design, and apparently that creates some very small air pockets or cavities. Sounds familiar. The designer also states that they reckon the performance improvement to athletes could be between 1 and 2%. I think the track also is prefabricated. That means I guess they can just move parts of it in, and that means you've got good consistency across all the different lanes, and for the various other events that take place, including the high jump, long jump, all that sort of stuff. It's not like this company have come along out of nowhere either. They've been producing and supplying the running track for the Olympics for the last 12 different iterations. Way back in 1948 they started actually delivering the track surface. As I mentioned before, lots of runners have had very good things to say about this MONDO track. But of course, the track surface is the same for all runners that will run on it, whereas shoes obviously make a little bit of a difference. They always used to say about the old Yeovil Town Football Club pitch, which was on a slope, that Yeovil always seemed to play that bit better at home and other teams would find it a little bit difficult to adapt to it. So in this instance, with the track, it's going to be the same for everybody. So we've got air-filled cavities in the track, super responsive light foam in the shoes, air-filled pods in some of them as well. I think a big advantage that we're all forgetting about is the refinement in terms of training techniques. Let's remember that the events of the last 16 months are bound to have affected people, some positively, some negatively. Preparation is so important, isn't it? Even if you're doing a 5k race, if you're going to the Olympics to represent your country, it's going to be even more so. Have some of these runners had the opportunity to get used to these new spikes, to actually get out there and test them so they can get the best out of them? I can imagine transitioning from a spike with very little foam underfoot to something that we have now could be quite difficult. It could take time, and the uncertainty of the world right now can't help matters either. We haven't had access to tracks or specific training routes that we might have wanted to use, and of course interactions between coaches and the athletes themselves would have been affected. You've obviously got nutrition and the spread and sharing of knowledge, which no doubt is going to help athletes to achieve their best. Perhaps there's a mixture of all of the different elements that I've talked about today that have gone into getting some of these better times. We've seen some amazing times in the semi-finals of some of the events, but we've yet to see a really standout time aside from those 400-meter hurdle races. I'm intrigued by that huge number of people that are adopting the Dragonfly spike as opposed to the other two shoes that Nike have available. Let's not forgetting the one that's used for long jump as well. There is a specific one there with a very thin zoom bag. Nike reckon on the MAXFLY being a sprint shoe, and it's more suitable for 100 to 400 meter events, whereas the Victory will be more suitable for 800 to 5,000 meter events. Taking a good look at both of those shoes, it's really upper differences that are the main thing, and you also appear to have an additional spike located in the center of the midfoot. Since they were released on Nike's website, they certainly seem very popular, with them pretty much selling out in every size almost instantly. But then you do see lots of them cropping up on places like StockX, those reseller websites, though I noticed that very few of them are shifting very quickly. Seems as though people have grabbed them for whatever they had to pay for them, and they're not making all that much by selling them, which I kinda like. There's always going to be some people that try their luck on things like that, and you have to say, well, I do feel a bit sorry for athletes that do want them, that could get some use out of them. So I've seen world records go in those 400-meter hurdles so far. Why is it that the shoes have had such an effect on the hurdle events and perhaps not so much on the other short distance events so far? I think things could change. By the time you watch this, there might have been loads of records gone, but I don't quite see it happening just yet. Is that event specifically benefiting from the upgraded tech in the shoes and also the track itself? Is it something to do with the weather conditions as well? I'm not sure I've ever done any hurdle events myself, although I've got the legs for it. I guess you can look at the track upgrades or innovations in the same light as the shoes to some degree. Certainly an interesting topic to talk about. I was thinking about it practically the whole way round on my run today. 8 miles, just over an hour. That's all I thought about. Let me know your views and opinions on this interesting subject down in the comments. I think innovation's something that never really ends, does it? It just carries on and on. Steve Starr does put some fantastic old running shoe adverts up on the Running Shoe Geeks Facebook page, and I always love looking at those. There's innovations that have come through, you know, over 30, 40 years. I mean, I'm the guy that likes old guitars and old valve amplifiers, designs that were made back in the 50s. I really like those archaic vibrato systems that you've got on guitars, like the Bigsby one or the floating tremolo. So maybe I've got an odd take on all of this, because I like all that kind of old stuff, but I like all the new stuff too. I think it's everything put together. That's why we're seeing these better times. The spread of the knowledge, the tech, all of those things put together, and the amazing athletes that we're all enjoying watching at the Olympics right now. I believe it may be time for a musical interlude. Today it comes in the form of the Status Quo. Now, I'm not talking about Status Quo from the later 80s where they turned to doing things like Margarita Time and In the Army Now. Can't get on with those tunes. They kind of smoothed off all the rough edges to Status Quo. It just didn't sound right. For me, it's always going to be about tracks like Paper Plane, Down Down, and Again and Again. Again and Again is brilliant. I always like listening to that one whenever I'm doing some sort of intervals or repeats. It works brilliantly. You can get it into your mind again, again. Come on, we got to get up for the next one. hit the mark for the next repeat. It's so much more exciting sounding as well. This feedback and noise. It sounds like they haven't filtered out all of the interesting stuff from the band's sound. I think as they developed through the 80s and into the 90s, they remembered again about what people liked about the group and got back to that raw sound, which is nice to hear. Tracks like I Didn't Mean It, I mean, they get back to that original sound again, which is good. Good to see the group is still playing as well. Sadly, some of the members have passed away, but there are other people filling the shoes, and it sounds good. So go and check them out, guys, if you've not heard them before, or it's been a while since you heard them. The Status Quo. Okay, thanks for joining me here at Eddbud Running Shoe Reviews. It's always appreciated. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you're informed when we roll out those new videos for you. And it helps the channel out a huge amount as well if you give this video a thumbs up like and also share this video with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you